I love reading. Since I was a kid, books have always been a part of my life. They have always been a place I can retreat to when the world feels just a little bit too loud. But I don't buy every book I read. I don't have the money for that, and I don't have the space either. So I only buy books I know I will come back to more than once. That's why I go to the library. It lets me try books first, without owning them and without committing. I can take my time, see how a story feels, and then decide if it's something I want to keep. Reading always slows me down. When I read, I get completely absorbed in it and forget the world around me. The story just comes alive in my head. I can see it, feel it, move through it, as if it was really happening. I love reading fantasy and science fiction because it lets me step out of the real world for a while. It weaves a little bit of magic into reality, something that normally doesn't exist. I get to explore entirely different worlds or see my own world from a new perspective because the real is mixed with something unreal. And when I go outside afterwards, the real world just feels a little bit more exciting, a little bit more interesting. Reading is my safe space. It's something I always come back to. It's often the moment when my day really ends. No matter what kind of day I had, if I sit down with a book in the evening, everything just feels okay again. Going to the library isn't easy for me. I'm not really a people person. I don't enjoy big cities, crowds, and all the noise. Just getting there already takes a lot out of me. Not physically, but emotionally. The bus ride, the city, the people itself. That's why I don't come here very often. When I'm there, part of my mind is always tense. But sometimes it still feels like the right thing to do. Because reading matters to me. And sometimes it's worth stepping out of my comfort zone for something that just gives me so much back. Today, I'm here with a very specific goal. I'm looking for Spanish fantasy books. I've been learning Spanish for the past few months, and I've been mostly reading books for beginners. And they are fine. I understand what's going on, but they don't really pull me in. They don't give me the same feeling I get when I read fantasy or science fiction. So I want to try something different. I'm not looking for a learner's book this time, but for a real story. A story written for Spanish natives. Something that pulls me into another world. Something that makes me want to keep reading, even if I don't understand every word. Because if the story is strong enough, learning doesn't feel like learning anymore. It just becomes part of the experience. That's actually how I learned English after school. In school, I was one of the best students of my class. I knew the grammar and I could do the exercises. But when I finished school, I realized I couldn't really use English. I couldn't read a book, I couldn't watch a movie, I couldn't talk to other people. That only changed once I stopped studying English and started to use it. I read books in English and I watched shows in English. I used the language for something I enjoyed, not because I had to learn it, but because I wanted to use it. And over time, it just stuck. Not all of it at once, but naturally over time. That's why I'm trying the same approach with Spanish. I don't want vocabulary lists and long grammar sessions. I know myself well enough to know I wouldn't keep that up. Instead, I want Spanish to be a part of things I already enjoy, watching videos or reading stories. If something comes up again and again, my mind just remembers it. And when I see grammar that I've looked at before, suddenly it just makes sense, because it's part of a story and not an exercise. I didn't end up taking a book home. I looked through all the fantasy books they had, and most of them were translations. And I realized that's not really what I'm looking for. The one fantasy book by a Spanish author that I found was way too difficult for me. I could understand paragraphs here and there, but not enough to actually follow the story. So I left without a book. And surprisingly, that feels okay. Today wasn't about finding the perfect book. It was about showing up, trying, and paying attention to what actually works for me. And sometimes that's enough.